Hello, everyone. I'm going to have a look at I Hear an Army by James Joyce. So let's go into some context. So James Joyce was an Irish modernist writer, though this poem is not particularly a modernist poem. So James Joyce lived from 1882 to 1941, and this poem is published in 1907. Now, that year of publication might seem significant because the poem, even if it's not about war necessarily, makes constant reference to military imagery, creates the sense of an approaching army. Now, there's a kind of political tension rising around Europe, and this time it is 7 years before the beginning of the First World War in 1914. So both Joyce and his reader have an awareness of this kind of potential rising military tension, which gives the significance of an army, the image of an army, sorry, more significance. Now, this poem is a rewriting of another poem by a very famous Irish poet named Yeats, W.B. Yeats, who wrote the poem 8 years before, and that poem is called He Bids His Beloved Be at Peace. So, with that contextual knowledge in mind, the idea of this being written at a time of increasing worries about international political relations, let's go into the poem. And it starts with the speaker describing hearing an army charging upon the land. Okay. However, principally our interpretation of the poem seems to be that this army is in fact a metaphor for the thought the speaker is having about love and about the person they love. And that's revealed in the final two lines. The Volta that comes at the beginning of this penultimate line that says, "My heart, have you no wisdom thus to despair? My love, my love, my love, why have you left me alone?" So there is no mention made of love until these last two lines, but they reveal the metaphor. They reveal that this army he hears seems to represent his thoughts of love or of the person that he loves. So we begin with the word I. That first person pronoun creates a very personal feel to this poem. He hears the army. Now that seems to be significant. He doesn't see the army, but he hears the army. Now, of all the senses and of all the sensory imagery that you could use, hearing is one that's very inescapable. I mean, if I have a visual image, it's quite easy for me to close my eyes or look away, but it's much harder to escape the sound of something. So it adds to the sense that this army, he cannot escape, he cannot stop being aware of the army. Now, the army, the military imagery of an army creates a sense of aggression for sure, and that's added to with the verb charging. It suggests that there is a malicious intent, that the army is coming for him in a very purposeful way, charging. So this quote has lots and lots to say about it. Color imagery is used in more than one case to describe these soldiers, this army charging towards him. They're described as having black armor, firstly, in the first stanza, the first quatrain. And, the color black might suggest something being sinister or evil or dark. But the second time that it's used is in the third and final quatrain. The soldiers, or rather the charioteers that are coming for him, are described as having green hair. Now, green is a color that represents jealousy. You might have heard of the green-eyed monster, and that is jealousy. So his thoughts of romantic love, as they come towards him, as they charge towards him, they have green hair. His thoughts of love are jealous. He's a jealous lover. Okay, so color imagery being used twice here. So that would be a nice paragraph where you could talk about color imagery in two separate instances. The phrase fluttering whips, so they carry these charioteers have whips. Now, whips connote slavery, or abuse. And so there's a sense that the speaker is, a slave to their feelings, a slave to their thoughts of love. They cannot escape them. They are trapped by the idea of love, but also those thoughts can inflict great pain upon the speaker. To be whipped, hugely painful. So these thoughts harm him greatly. So that phrase, fluttering whips, I think you can do lots of good in language analysis for. I'd like to talk about these quotes here in gold. Now, there's a lot to unpick here. It's almost 2 lines of poetry, but both of them create the same kind of sense of the kind of physical power and aggression of this army. The phrase, they cleave the gloom of dreams. Now, to cleave suggests cutting through or destroying something. So his dreams are being cleaved, are being destroyed by these thoughts. He's not able to sleep. He's waking up, or he's having nightmares about jealous romantic thoughts. So that word cleave is very destructive to me. The thoughts are described as clanging, clanging, and that onomatopoeia is repeated, clanging, clanging. It's a very harsh, loud sound. It's not something you'd be able to ignore, a clanging, clanging. So the sense of this being a very immediate sensory experience, one that you cannot ignore, is made clear here. I'm going to combine these two things, cleave and clanging, clanging, and notice that there is guttural alliteration. That hard k sound that you need to make from your gut, from your diaphragm, it's a harsh sound, k. It's a harsh, firm sound, and it reflects the kind of harshness of feelings that he's going through, I would say. And the last thing I'd say about this quote is the simile clanging upon the heart as upon an anvil. So an anvil is a tool that a blacksmith would use to create to create metalwork. And, the noise of hitting an anvil with a hammer, incredibly loud. Metal hitting metal. So it's creating a sense of just how loud and unavoidable these thoughts are. The last line I think is important. He repeats "my love" 3 times. My love, my love, my love. The speaker is obsessed with the person that they love. They're obsessed with their love. They can't stop thinking and talking about it. And we're left finally with this rhetorical question: why have you left me alone? And it draws attention to the fact that they have been left alone. There is no one to answer this question. The question remains unanswered, and that's the end of the poem. There will be no resolution to this feeling of heartbreak. So I think we've got a lot of things to be talking about there.